there are a couple of things that I feel important to mention. Where my nanny and granddad, my mother's parents, lived all my life, from the back garden you could see Pendle Hill, and I feel like it's Pendle Hill itself that really is my spiritual home. I don't know how in contact with it I was when I was younger, but we would go and see this shop where we would go and see the witches outside, like models of witches. And I remember on Halloween going round to the houses on the green where we lived and making a little poem up, and I can't remember all of it, but in it it said, "I leave you with one thing to remember, Copster Green's not far from Pendle." When I was underneath 6, could have been 5, we lived in Accrington at the time, and I had this beautiful little frog that I'd got from a cracker, a little plastic frog with googly eyes that you like wiggled them around. They were about the size of a poppy seed, and I loved this little frog so much. And I took it to school and I'd lost it. And I remember being so upset that I'd lost it. And then somehow I found it again, and it really was like a needle in a haystack, and I was really, really delighted. And although this might not sound of relevance, many, many years later, when I met a woman who was already on her shamanic path, she made a journey for me, a soul journey, for me to go and connect with my own spirit animal. And lo and behold, when I undertook this journey, it was a frog, a golden frog. But its representation as that tiny little googly-eyed frog from a cracker was also there. And that has really deep meaning for me. When I was about 11, I got really interested in astrology, and I got a book when I was 50 that detailed like the moon's phases and the traits of astrology, and basically there were these tiny little, often handwritten books, and I sought out symbols of wisdom, and it was always spirit that I was looking for, because I didn't grow up in a religious household. I went to like a Church of England school, but it was never the actual magic of life, was not necessarily paid attention to. The story that, when I've been in this garden, strikes me as the one to tell is as follows. So when I was about 15, I was in a relationship with a boy called Patrick, who lived in Rosegrove, which bizarrely is where my paternal grandmother lived. And she died long before I was born. She died very early, when my dad was only 7. Anyway, Patrick lived in Rosegrove, and he went to a different school, and I was in a relationship with him, which, looking back, was very unhealthy. But it had a motorbike and a like brown leather jacket and all these other things that I found enchanting at the time. And this particular night, I'd been led out onto the green. I was probably going to the phone box to try to find out where he was. You used to go to the phone box in those days. And I went to the phone box and couldn't get in touch with him. And then something drew me across the road. There's a main road, and then on the other side there was a field with, and it was absolutely, this field was filled with mist from one side of the fence to the other, but the mist was completely contained within this one field, and I was mesmerised by it, but also quite scared or trepidatious. And I remember going over to the fence, and in the middle of this field of mist, I saw the most beautiful white glowing mushroom, and underneath it was all like the most intricate umbrella texture. And I remember climbing over the fence and getting this mushroom and being just completely led to do so. Completely. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I knew I had to. There was no choice. I've climbed over the fence and got this mushroom and eventually took it home. But then I remember going to the phone box at the bottom of the green and ringing my best friend Jessica and saying something's wrong, something's not right. And she's like, Katharine, what's the matter? What's wrong? You know, and I was saying, well, there's this mist. And she was saying, well, it's fine. No, it's all right. No, nothing's wrong. And I said, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's not right. And then eventually, when I got home, I managed to get through to Patrick on the phone, and his father had died that night. I'm pretty certain he probably had died as the mist was in the field. And for years and years later, I would say that was one of the first experiences of me opening my heart to being led. And the other world, the idea of the other world, is a place where I was drawn to visit many, many, many times before I even knew that our ancient indigenous practices, the Celtic ways and the ways of our land here, we would call it the other world. That's what it would be called within our kind of indigenous spiritual practices. And my path has led me, of course, to be a shamanic practitioner, but I feel much more comfortable to call myself a witch. I feel that much more embodies what I do.